I would like to start at the beginning. I was thinking that maybe it's nice to speak about Romania as a country who is at the border between the NATO and European Union and further East Europe. But then I was thinking that if the title of the conference is Instability in Our Doorsteps, and if we are in European Union, in Hungary, so our doorsteps means Moldova. And Moldova is not so well known. It's a very small country and quite complicated. And I would say that the way the West is perceiving this country is easily putting a kind of the most poor country in Europe, as it is also for some of the countries in the Balkans. And if we discuss it in the perspective of the Balkans, it is a country who has lots of good and bad from the Balkans, even if it is a bit more eastwards. So the Russian strategy for Moldova is somehow connecting with the strategy for Romania, just that the connections are extremely strong, and quite a big part of the population still does know where from now on. And this kind of confusion, I think it can define many of the countries who are at the doorstep of European Union. The question which the population of these countries are asking, where are we going from now on? And unfortunately, because of weak politicians, and I will come to this discussion a bit later, the population is so confused about, especially in countries who are so young. So we are speaking about Moldova, which has its independence since 25 years. 25 years means nothing in terms of history, but in terms of human being, means half of their life. And in this half of their life, they have to pass through so many crises that they didn't understand. So now they are at the crossroad. Where shall we go from now on? And unfortunately, the answer is not so easy to be given because also of the pressure coming from the East, and also, I would say, from the, mistakes of the West. And so that's why I think that Moldova is an interesting case, because it has many of the unsolved questions which remained even from the Cold War. So it has a frozen conflict, which is Transnistrian. It has an autonomous region, which is Gagauzieri, which are Turks who are Christianized Turks, who all of them are speaking Russian. It's their main language there. And the danger is not gone for what it will happen. So always these two hotspots can be taken as a kind of scarecrow for whoever is in power. And it's a kind of status quo which everyone somehow is obliged to accept. The population is not so active. And being not active and somehow scared about what's going on, and I'm speaking now about Crimea and the war in eastern Ukraine, so the population thinks also, because there were so many years of Soviet influence there, that they cannot change anything. So with a passive population, afraid of what's going on around you, and with the European Union who is reluctantly helping the far away East, as Moldova can be considered, it's very easy that it became the playground between the East and the West. Media, church, economic connections, political parties are very bound to the big power, which was Russia. In terms of media, the most trusted source of information, according to a Gallup survey done last year, 54% of the population is watching only or mainly Russian channels. 47% of Moldovans wants into custom union with Russia, and just 41% to European Union. What is interesting is that this 41% is decreasing. In 2008, when it was the war in Georgia, they were 65% thinking that European Union will be the part of the world where they want to go. Unfortunately, because of the doubting policy, I would say, from European Union, with a concrete conflict, so people arrived to the conclusion that, and it was definitely put through the media, the West is far away. We are here. The West has its problems. We are here and we want to help. And I will tell you just two very short examples, which I hope will make you understand. So all musical TV channels in Moldova are coming through Russia. So when you are watching American soap opera, you will watch it dubbed in Russian. So TV channels and everything which comes from the West come through the Russian channel. Then, as an honest, humble Moldovan, what do you think? You think that basically the ones who want to make you more sophisticated, more farmer away, and more urbanized are the Russians. Also, the same question is with the films. You will not find in Moldova films, American films, with Romanian subtitles. The answer is easy, the market. It's a small market. So then the question which I think you can raise normally is, if it's such a small country with such 3.5 million population, why should we care about it? And my answer to this is, not being a Moldovan patriot, is because devil is always in details. Yes, in terms of the map of Europe, Moldova is a detail. But usually details are blowing up. Because for the big issues, people take care of them. But these are details that nobody has time or interest to look about. So these 25 years of independence, the message which the Russian media is trying to impose, and also the pro-Russian forces, and here I'm speaking also about the church, I'm speaking also about 3 political parties who are openly pro-Russian. Moldova's independence is insignificant. Nobody cares about it. So while being the Soviet Republic of Moldova, at that moment, the center was closer to them. They were part of an empire. The history, as we all know in this room, history in this part of the world is still an ongoing story. Nothing is finished. Everyone is coming back from 60 years ago, from 100 years ago, from 200 years ago. So that's why the Russian looks, the idea of Moldova being once a province from Romania, it's definitely used by the Russian propaganda, by the Russian media, as, again, a scarecrow. Because, yes, Romania, during the Second World War, did terrible things in Transnistria. So people tried not to speak about this and tried somehow just to have very elite discussion about this. But when you are going in profound Moldova, you see that this kind of history coming just with this episode. The episode is, yes, Antonescu's regime and the crimes which were done in Transnistria. On the other hand, if you are looking to Also, not to details to what's going on. Now, the Russian, it's not speaking about Gulag, it's not speaking about deportation. And if it speaks about Solzhenitsyn, it's speaking about him just with his Orthodox religious connection. So it's a kind of starting from a reality and something which is historically true, and trying to put it in a frame where the image will be distorted. Nostalgia feelings are very much played, and they are played also, again, through movies. So I'm always thinking that propaganda, it's not about rationality, obvious. It's about emotions. Emotion means art, and emotion means how you make people cry when you are seeing a film from the 80s. Then you realize in the 80s, it was not so bad at the end. We have a working place. We were in a big country. Our country was on the level of United States. We were in the middle of the Cold War. It's true. Our parents, yes, they were deported, but some of them found their way in Kazakhstan or in Siberia, or they never came back. So the life in the 80s was much more sure for people. They knew what to expect next day. And these kind of feelings are very cleverly, I would say, exploited through emotion. It means through movies, through entertainment programs, and also through newspaper or day by day. Russian language is the language of luxury and glamour. This you can find everywhere in pubs, restaurants, beauty salons, in a country where young people coming from countryside are really so impressed that at one day they can be part of the bigger glamorous world. It's not, Russian language, it's not the language of Chekhov or of Gogol. It's a language of luxury and glamour, because through the media, everyone want to be a winner, and everyone want to be part of a glamour reality. European Union is dysfunctional. It's another very strong message which is coming through this. The idea that in European Parliament the debates are, not everyone agrees, and there are so many nuances, and the policy is so difficult to implement. So 28 countries, 28 parliaments, they had to approve visa-free liberalization for Moldovans. It's a long way. It's a kind of waiting. So definitely Moldovans have this right to travel freely. But the way they arrived to this was through a long process which was asking them to accept things which in a traditional, rural, peripheric society was very difficult to swallow. And here comes one of the most strong supporters of Russian influence in the region, which is the church. Moldova has two Orthodox churches. We speak about the big churches. So one is under the Russian Patriarch. It means under Kirill. And the other one is under the Romanian Patriarchate. It means the Patriarch Daniel. And it started a fight. In these 25 years, the church in itself was a kind of fight, who we are. Are we with the Russians or are we with the Romanian? And the idea was to exclude each other. This was something, divided impera, we know very well. It's something that is definitely bringing fruits in this part of the world. People didn't come together to see that they have the same problems. They were definitely defining themselves according to the bigger city, Moscow or Bucharest. And while European Union is asking you to reform, and in this reform, the church was putting emphasis on LGBT people. This was, and in Romania as well, and unfortunately in Romania it came like a new wave, which in 2007 seems not to be so strong, but now it comes once more. So they want us to believe that everyone has the same right. It's very difficult when the head of the church, which has a tremendous expensive watch on his hand, to explain to a poor country that because of European Union and LGBT people, which are 1,000, 2,000, the situation goes wrong. And the way this kind of issue became the most important issue in the debate between the Church and European Union, it's something that I think needs psychological and sociological research much more than it is done. The divided Orthodox clergy was played also because they were fighting for the same churches, for the same piece of lands. And this made the society somehow be divided as well. And it's a kind of division which you can see. We are going quite a lot with my work in what is called Profound Moldova, where usually politician doesn't go. And the fact is that this fight between the churches was seen the poor, which means the Basarabia church, versus the rich. And people would like to be with the winners. And the winners means, and I come back to the famous slogan, which I was impressed how it was done, to the glamour. The glamour comes also in the church from the Moscow Patriarchate. In terms of energy, economic, banks, everything is more or less in connection with Russia. Main businesses are Russian, few foreign investments, biggest market is Russia. That's why Russia is able to blackmail Moldova with wines, fruits, and so on. And again, something which the West didn't notice because it was a footnote. Russia opened its market, wine markets, to some of the wine producers. Guess who? The ones who are owned by Russians, and the ones in Gagauzieri. I told you it's this autonomous republic, which is the region which is in Moldova, in the center of Moldova. So, in the same time, so they are open the market for these products with big discussion, roundtable discussion on TV, while European Union is saying, you should pack them, you should wash them, you should put them in this kind of size, and everything had to be in a different way than our traditional way to do the things. So European Union asks from Moldovans, as they ask from Romanians, Hungarian, Czechs as well, efforts, while Russia doesn't ask any effort. So, in terms of politics, there are at least 3 political parties who are openly pro-Russian. And 3 of them had different strategies. 3 of them are targeting different parts of the population. And 3 of them are playing with the same, I would say, fear factor. One are the socialists, the most popular party in Moldova at this moment. It's led by a former economic minister, and on its billboard for the elections, it was with Putin And so this was the idea. With me, you are with Russia. The second party is founded and led by the mayor of Balkans. It's called Renato Usati. It's not just a controversial businessman, but according to Rice investigative reports, he was involved in killings of bankers, of Russian bankers in London. He's very young. He's targeting the young population with a kind of message which is, I could put it as coolness. I am saying what the others doesn't have the courage to say. My pictures are with a machine gun, and I am saying that I would like to do in the little palace where is the American embassy, a karaoke club. So, and these kind of statements are done without, in an open way, and trying definitely to get together the young people who are unhappy about the situation. Who are these young people? And this is also very interesting. To all these rallies are the young people who or have the parents abroad and they are sending money to them, or they are the ones who cannot handle to do by themselves studying or working in European Union or in the West generally. So they are the young and unhappy. Or we can put them that they are the kind of losers of the transitions. Also, Usati was saying that if he will be elected at one moment president, he doesn't have the age to be the president of Moldova. He will make a wall between Romania and Moldova so that nothing wrong and bad comes from the West to Moldova. And then definitely there are the unreformed communists, which we know, which are still going each year to the Lenin statue, which is not in the center of Chisinau, it's a bit out, but they are going, putting flowers and believing that in the Bolshevik teaching. All these three parties are promoting the image of a powerful leader, a father for the nation, in other words, an autocratic political system. Now it comes my question, why this small, poor, complicated Moldova can be important? And the answer, and why now the pressure is so big? And the answer comes from what's going on in Ukraine. Because if the West gets Ukraine, then Moldova will become a bigger Transnistria, a kind of bigger Kaliningrad. That's why Moscow will want to keep always Moldova easily as being a supporter of its policy. With 54% of the population watching only Russian channels, do you think that it's very complicated to accept the idea that basically the annexation of Crimea was legal? It's not so complicated. If Moldova stays unstable and unpredictable, which unfortunately in this moment it is, then the European Union and the West will withdraw, and Russia can easily regain its near abroad and consolidate its position in the region. As Moscow policy was always 2 steps forward and eventually 1 backward, Moldova is seen by Moscow as an important step to discredit European Union through the policy of Romania and then towards the region. And I would say that if the Russian strategy in this region was a long-term strategy, and it started with first Putin mandate, it was put in place step by step copying the democratic model for soft power, but just turn it in the opposite direction. And I have just one little other point, which is, and comes a bit to Romania, how Russia is playing a very important subject, which is the subject of unifying. So Moldova is part of Romania. If you ask me in terms of how many people would vote for reuniting with Romania, I will tell you that there are not trustful research done. But we can say roughly that 2/3 of the population will be against and 1/3 will be for. While in Romania, this unification is played as România Mare, so as is also Greater Serbia, and it's promoting this nationalistic view of Romania and somehow not supporting the idea of unifying with Bessarabia, but this concept, we have to be there, we have to bring everyone together. It's something which is in Romania helps the Russian way to show then in Moldova, you see, they don't want to reunite with you to be good for you, but for them to get 3.5 million customers and definitely a bigger role in the region. So, and the way, I said that Russia was copying this soft power Western model, but turning it differently, because in the way they did it, it's that the director of the Sputnik news agency and the site in Moldova is a former pro-unionist guy. The guy who in 1991 was the front runner for uniting with Romania. So in this way, the message is quite clear. This is not possible, then come back in our fold, which is the dear dream of Russia, I would say, as it was said by Putin, to restore a kind of Soviet Union. Thank you.